Hey everyone, today we're excited to introduce Stephen McAnulla, a talented photographer from Grent Bend, Kansas. In our interview, Stephen delves into Polarr Next by editing one of his engagement sessions, and he's impressed with how the program matches the quality he's used to with his current workflow. Watch as Stephen explores the potential of incorporating Polarr Next into his editing workflow. Make sure to like this video and subscribe as we dive into this session with Stephen. Welcome back everyone to another interview. Today we are traveling to Grent Bend, Kansas to hang out with Stephen McAnulla. Today a photographer, wedding photographer, family portrait photographer, to share his experience about Polarr Next. Stephen, why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey with us?
Okay, well, I'm Stephen McAnulla. I have been a photographer for, I think it's going on 13 years professionally. I kind of started out doing photography before I was professional. I got interested in it and started doing stuff for like bands, taking pictures for bands. And I was a web designer. And so a lot of times they needed a photographer to get their picture on the website that I was building. So that's kind of how I got my feet wet with photography. And then I ended up really enjoying it. And I had an opportunity to buy a professional camera. Well, at the time I thought it was professional. It was from Walmart. So
Okay.
and so I bought that with the funds from one of my website jobs and took that to build my business. I decided to shift out of web design altogether.
Wow.
I already had the graphic design knowledge, which was very helpful going into photography. It's a seamless transition. So it made editing much easier for me because I kind of already knew my way around Photoshop, and I just never really looked back. I kind of dove in. Been doing it ever since.
So professional camera at the time. I don't want to date you or anything like that, but like, what was the camera? Was it DSLR? Was it film at the time? What was going on?
It was DSLR, but it was a Canon T2i.
Okay. Wow.
You know, they sell for like $300 or $400 at Walmart at the time, I think. So, and a kit lens, and I thought I was in business, you know.
All right. So, you know, Polarr Next, this is what we're going to talk about today. You're going to share your experience with it. It is an AI platform. It is an editor that utilizes AI. So let's talk about that. What is your experience with AI in photography? Have you tried any other programs or solutions?
I have. In fact, I got started with a program called Evoto, I think is how you say it. It's either Evoto or Evoto. That was my first introduction to it. And I just kind of did a search on Google. I was like, man, I need something that's going to speed up my workflow, you know, because I just spend so much time on the editing process. And so I just put it in as kind of a goof, wanting to see how far AI had come. And I used their program. I was really impressed. You know, it was still a much younger piece of software at the time, but I still thought it was really impressive. It was mainly I was using it for touch-ups to save me time with touch-ups. You know, not so much, you know, establishing my color or lighting or any of that.
Yeah.
More just for the stuff that's very tedious. And so that was a really good find for me. So then I thought, well, there's got to be other people doing it too, you know, and I just kept branching out and Google searching and ran across about everything on the market, I think, at least the mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
And you guys were one of them as well. It just popped up and I don't remember exactly what order, but it was in there somewhere.
Nice. Yeah. Evoto's very powerful in the way that it retouches and it can recognize multiple photos. And yeah, that was something I played around with it a couple months ago. And then yeah, there's a lot out there, and it seems like AI's been around for a long time, but really like probably it's been about a year where it's really like, I know After Shoot Imagine's kind of been around for a while, but like it's really ramped up, it seems, you know, and
it's maybe getting more intelligent.
Yeah, across the whole board, like ChatGPT and its capabilities, and just trickling down to Photoshop and Lightroom has generative. It's pretty interesting. All these different solutions. So what was it that you were looking for in an AI program? Like, what were the boxes that you had to check off in order to find that one program that you would stick with?
Well, the main thing is I want it to be able to still be my style, which, you know, is pretty common, I think, with a lot of the AI stuff. I wanted it to be able to, I didn't want it to feel like I was taking someone else's style and then just adapting to it and saying, well, this is my new style. You know, because I've got an established look. I kind of want to continue with it.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. And then obviously the speed of doing bulk edits, especially like with weddings. But
Yeah.
senior photos are also a very time consuming edit because I usually put in a lot more time on a senior photo.
Mm-hmm.
So something that can speed that process up is a big help. And
Yeah.
those are the main things I'm looking for. I'm not necessarily looking for something that can edit better than me, but something faster than me.
That's really good. I like that. Polarr Next. Let's talk about that. So when did you first jump into it? Like, when did you first dive in?
Well, right when I ran across it, I dove in, but I don't think I understood it well enough. So it was one of those things where you try it for a second and you go,
Yeah.
well, that's kind of stressful. I'm not sure. And so I backed off for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but then I don't remember exactly when I jumped back in, but I was speaking with another guy
Mm-hmm.
from there, Jonathan, and
Mm-hmm.
he kind of walked me through some of the things that I was having trouble with. And then I was like, oh, well, I should have just read the instructions. I'm not very much a patient person when it comes to instructions.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was very straightforward. I just tried to jump in and act like I knew how to use it immediately. So, but it's really, you almost can do that once you figure out a couple things. So,
Yeah. Do you remember what month that was, or like how many months ago?
let me think. It's July. It was probably in May, maybe late
Okay.
April, early May.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Yeah. I was having a conversation the other day with another photographer for recording, and so he was showing me, we were demoing it, and he was doing it, and he just blew right past all the different bubbles that would pop up or little
Yeah.
tooltips. And then he asked me, like, how do you do this? And I was like, well,
It just told
if you read it, you
That's
can
probably
learn,
what I did.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
an extent, you can jump in and figure your way around, but it is a different workflow. And
Yeah.
it is something that I think we as a community have to keep reminding, or just putting literature out there, videos out there to help people. We do a live stream every month, and it's actually coming up this Wednesday, every month, to just work through a project and share some, best practices and share about the workflow, because that's probably one of our biggest questions, is just, how do I do this? How do I do that? And
Right.
not everyone has the time to like binge watch the tutorials and things like that, but that's good feedback. Appreciate that.
I think once people get into it and they mess with it a little bit, once they realize it's actually pretty familiar, if they were used to like Lightroom or similar editors,
Yeah.
you get past that initial part with the AI part, but then the rest of it is very familiar. So it's maybe they don't realize that when they first get into it. But I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, this is just like using Lightroom in a lot of ways. So not identical, but similar enough.
So when you finally got the hang of it, how many projects did you put a lot of work through it? Did you work through a lot of projects?
Once I got the hang of it, I kind of went nuts for like a day or two. I was just like, wow, this is amazing. I was trying to throw everything at it I could, different kinds of projects, different kind of lighting. I just wanted to really drill it. Oh, I got an alarm for my phone. Hopefully that didn't come through.
No, it's okay. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, stupid iPhones. Anyway, so what was I saying?
You're throwing everything through it, different lighting scenarios and everything.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I could throw any complicated lighting situation, even photos that probably I would have to work very hard to save. I wanted it to be able to have all that in its catalog, so it would see how I would save a bad photo if I had one.
Yeah.
And so it was fascinating, because then it started condensing more and more, and it got to where the more I edited with it, the more I didn't have to tweak it much. When I'd load in a new batch, it'd have most of them pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to go in and make littler tweaks every time I'd add a new session. It was like it was learning. I could see it was learning. So
yeah, that is awesome. And like, so as you were seeing it learn, as you're marking the references and things like that, was like, what were the thoughts going through your head? Was it like, wow, this is so easy, or this is something that like I've kind of wanted in a program, or like, what were those thoughts?
All of that. Yeah. I would say every bit of that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, there's another one person I was talking with, and she was like, as I was showing her on a little like 30-minute call, and I was like, does this make sense? Like, do you think you'd be able to use it? She's like, yeah, I'm waiting for this call to end so I can start using it. Like I want to jump into it already, like finally catching the concept of it. But that's awesome. Okay, we're going to jump into the next part then. And what we're going to have you show us is you using Polarr Next and how you work your workflow. All right. Okay. So why don't you go ahead and drag a project in? We'll see how it imports and then just take us through your editing process.
All right. Well, I've got it right on the desktop, so I'll just peek over here.
Okay, perfect.
We'll go with this one.
And are you still working with Canon?
No, I'm a Fuji guy now. I've been through everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's been quite a journey, but nice. I think I'm loving Fuji. It's got its problems, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Well, here you can hit overwrite, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to start from scratch here. So.
All right, let's go.
So do you want me to use my AI or start from the very beginning here?
Do you have a style already made?
I just kind of tinkered with one last night just to get one going, but I didn't know if you wanted me to start from the ground up, because we can totally do that.
Yeah, let's start from the ground up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'd love to hear your thinking behind your decisions.
So we'll do advanced setup.
Yeah.
I'll leave this on the screen for a second. Pause your video if you want to read this.
Yeah. Learn how to create your references. That's very, very key. References are like the cornerstone of this. Oh, nice photo.
Thank you. So it pulled in the references it thought would be a good starting place. So I'm going to trust the judgment there. I can always add more later. So I have a starting preset that this is kind of my go-to starting place. And it's pretty similar to what I have in Lightroom. I had to tweak it a little once I got it in here, but it's very similar. Okay. So I'm going to use that as my starting place. And then let's see, I'll go up here to your suggestions for best results. Edit and mark 7 photos as a reference using the toggle below. So,
when you're editing, you just applied your preset just now. Is this closer or further away from the style you're looking for? Like, how would you decide?
This is closer. It's just too bright.
Okay.
If I bring this down a little bit, that's going to help a lot.
Okay.
And I'm not using my typical work monitor here, so I might not get exactly my style, but I'll get it pretty close. I'm on a little tiny laptop now. So let's see. There's not a lot of changes I would make to that, at least this particular photo. So the white balance looks pretty on to me.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and hit mark it as a reference, and you can go here or hit the letter M. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to move on to the next suggestion.
So one thing I noticed as well on your history panel is that when you applied the preset, you can see that step there in the history. And then right on top of it, Polarr Next actually made some auto lighting and white balance adjustments as well.
All right.
So if you click the step below, there you go. That's what your preset looked like. And then it processed, if you click up, the further enhancements. So is that auto lighting and white balance pretty more spot on? Or like, is that something you leave on?
I would say, the white balance didn't seem to change too much. Mm-hmm. It looks like it changed a little bit, but the lighting, it brought it down. And honestly, I would bring it down a little bit more because I like to see more detail. So I go for a little bit richer edit.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not the light and airy type. We got some shadow stuff going on here. So I would probably pull up the shadows a little bit. And sometimes if I feel like there's too much shine coming off the skin, I'll bring the whites down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if I have to, I'm not sure, just Polarr Next, when I make tweaks in here, like to the parametric EQ, is it going to also mess with that? Or is that one of the settings it doesn't mess with?
Those sliders right there?
Yeah.
Those sliders will affect the curve.
But will it remember that and use it AI wise? Will it adjust the sliders?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Pretty much anything you do, masking, spot healing, cropping, everything on that panel, it'll remember.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty close. They have different complexions. And so I'm kind of trying to find the balance between them. I would go in and tweak that more in the final edit. So I'll just take that for now, move on to the next one.
Okay.
This one looks like it's mainly just an exposure issue. It looks like the white balance is pretty close.
That's a fun moment.
Yeah. It's funny that it picked that photo.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to remind people too, because we do get questions like, hey, why is it suggesting these photos when it's a really bad shot? And it's like, well, it's really just looking for the different lighting
Yeah.
scenarios rather than culling for you. It's
Yeah,
not culling.
it's not
Yeah,
looking at the quality of the shot so much.
correct.
All right, so I would probably try to get the vibe of the bar with the natural window light coming in here and try to
Yeah,
make
I
it
was
more a
about
little.
to ask, like, are these people part of the shoot, or you're just catching
I
the
just
vibe
walked
of the
in.
bar?
I walked into the bar and I saw this cowboy looking dude sitting there watching TV. And so I just quickly snapped it. And then I walked back out because this place where we were doing the photo shoot, we were doing a shoot all around downtown. And we just happened to stop at this bar. And he said, well, you guys ought to get a couple of beers to kind of give you a couples night type of vibe in your
Yeah,
couple session. And so they stopped and had a beer. And I just went in there and I saw that guy and I had to get a picture of him.
nice.
So I would probably give this just a little more pop down here with the lights. I like to do that just to kind of make it feel a little more filmic. That's my thing. I'm always trying to get something to feel a little bit like film. And so
Hmm.
even with my curve here, a lot of times, especially for a shot like this, it really benefits to kind of go matte with it just a little bit here, kind of bring those blacks to a fade here. And to me, that looks a little more like a print would.
Hmm.
So that's where I would want that one. Okay, we'll just go ahead and quickly. That one's not too bad already. I mean,
Yeah,
it did a pretty good job. The white
I
balances
like
have been
that.
spot on for the most part, I'd say.
So
Uh,
you're posing and your experience with that, like how did that come about? Like, do you just naturally feel comfortable to get people in the poses? Did you take courses and workshops?
uh, I would say it's all of those, but in a different order. Like I feel pretty comfortable now. I can just kind of set people down and go. I can just see, oh, that's not going to work. Let's try
Hmm.
this. And a lot of times I give them the freedom to kind of start the pose first. I'm like, you
Yeah.
guys be relaxed and just do your thing. And I will tell you if something's not looking right. That's how I like to start,
Okay.
because a lot of times they're going to get something more natural to them if they just sit down and do their thing.
Yeah.
But I did watch tons of videos for over a decade, probably. I
Yeah.
watched every video on YouTube I could find. I read PDFs and books and all that. So,
Nice.
and I used to be pretty awkward because I'm kind of an introvert anyway. So it took a lot to get me to be able to communicate what I'm seeing in my head. I was very clumsy about it for a long time. It took me a while to get comfortable with it,
Yeah. Nice.
but it feels pretty natural. I think it's natural to me now because I've learned to, instead of being the photographer on the scene, I'm kind of just like an extra person having fun with them. And I try to just let loose, talk with them, joke. We laugh a lot at every session. I like humor. And so
I like
usually we're
that.
laughing and smiling, and that just brings out their smile and personality and loosens them up.
That's cool.
That's kind of the approach I take. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of communication in my sessions.
Yeah. And you guys are in like the back alleys of this place, and they
Yeah.
definitely have their trust in you.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
cool
No doubt.
spot though. Complements their outfit pretty well.
Yeah. And I go in, I'm a person that believes you can start with a canvas like this, and then I go in and clean up all the stuff that I don't
Yeah.
like. I'd probably remove the gas meter here. And,
Hmm.
you don't want too many distractions to take away the focus
Yeah.
on your client. So, but
Very
it's a
true.
good place to start, two walls that are close to each other.
Hmm.
Uh, he gets a little shadowy on his face over here. So that's the kind of stuff I would address later on in the final edits. But I just
Okay.
try to get a balanced look here. Like, to me, this is about as balanced as I could get it before I started masking or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
I'm going to click that. I got one more photo to go. This one should be pretty straightforward. And I might just give it a little more
What
pop.
is this? Like the entrance to that bar, or
No,
like
this is somebody's house near
somebody's
that bar.
house?
And they happen to live right beside several bars, and it's just like in the business district, but somebody's house is there. And
Oh,
so I
that's
end up
cool.
using this a lot, and then I'll edit this stuff out in the air conditioner and stuff later. So, but
Nice.
yeah, it's interesting. Let's see here. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit here. To me, the most important thing I focus on, I don't want the background to be washed out if I can avoid it. And skin tones, I don't want them to be too dark and shadowy to where you can't see their eyes very well.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
always trying to find that balance. And if I can't get it perfectly because the lighting was weird, then I will resort to using masks. But I try to find that sweet spot where I can get the background and the skin as close as possible.
Mhm.
I address the rest later on in the final edits. So to me, all I have to do is get the AI close enough to where when I look at this photo, I go, that's a pretty sweet photo.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be close enough to eliminate a lot of work for me down the road.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm going for. So there we've got that. I went ahead and marked that as a reference. I'm just going to go ahead and say finish AI style.
There you go.
And do you want me to leave this up for a second so people can read it?
Yeah. I mean, I'll summarize it. We're basically saying AI is not perfect, and you may experience suboptimal results because there's a reason why other solutions will ask up front for thousands of references, because it does take a lot of effort to train your style. But we kind of approach it from the different way where you can be hands-on with it and dictate what it's going to look like in the beginning and then work with it over time. I think that's a good little summary there.
All right. So now it's already working on them, it looks like.
Yeah.
And the green check marks means it's already applied the initial edit to it. So
what we're looking for, color and exposure consistency. Yeah,
that's the main thing I'm focused on. So let's just pick a few of them here and kind of start from the front here. This one, because he's got shadow on this side and she's more lit up, I would probably find a balance between them to train my AI to look for this. I would probably pull my blacks up a little bit and bring my whites down just to kind of even things out. And then I'll use the contrast to kind of bring back some of that punch if I need it. And probably pull the shadows up a little because he's got a lot darker hair than her. So, this is about as close as I can get it without masking her. And she's got a lot more light coming in around this corner on her. So I would probably mark that as a reference because there's a lot of similar ones here. And now it's going to load those all in and apply that. So let's just go kind of to here and see how it looks. And I would probably tweak this a little bit more. I'm going to bring some of that shadow back because it was kind of washed out maybe. I think about like that. Give it, I don't want it to get too crunchy. There we go. That's still a little crunchy, but that's a good enough place for now.
Nice.
What I like is if you go back, like say you make a better edit down the road on a similar image, you can still go back and correct your reference and it will update and change things. So let's pick one more from that settings. And that one looks a lot more consistent. It looks like the last edit I did. It pretty much nailed it. I don't know how this affects the AI or not, but a lot of times if I find it got several in a row right, I will go ahead and mark more of them as a reference because I figure it kind of reinforces it. Is that the case?
Yes, exactly. I always do that by habit, when I'm going through and everything. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. So if it's a good photo and I go, well, it nailed it, even if I don't change it, I'm going to still put it as a reference because I want it to know that was right.
Yeah.
So then we'll go to this one here. So here was the reference we did. It looks like it pretty much carried over to these two. So I would probably move on at this point if I was going for a speed edit because I can trust that these are all pretty good. I could lock these if I wanted to. Like if I was so happy with them, I didn't want something to happen, I'd go up here and lock it. And that way, if it does readjust later, it won't affect that image. So
correct. Yes.
Okay. So then I would go probably pick this photo. It looks a little light to me, but other than that, it's not too bad. Maybe bring up the blacks just a little bit so I can bring the exposure down, kind of even things out, the difference between their skin tones. And that's close. That's definitely good enough for a proof, the first round where they're going to pick their photos from it. So I will mark that as a reference. And it didn't go backwards. It must not have thought that was similar enough. So what I do in this case, if I know this image and this image are similar, since it didn't catch it, I will go ahead and hit Command C. And since I'm not cropping or anything right now, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure everything's selected so I know I don't miss anything. And I'll go to this photo. I will paste it to get it close. It did shift the angle of it because apparently it adjusted my crop a little bit. But that way I know I'm starting from a similar place as this one, and it might be a little more consistent with the other ones, and it might pick up on them after I finalize this one. So if I do this, hopefully, see it grabbed two more of these, and it's basically averaging it out between these two photos. And so let's see how they look.
One thing in your settings panel in the bottom left, we've now enabled by default forward only processing.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So what that means is like, ideally you would have started at the beginning of that sequence and then marked the references. So then it goes down. Just because we found a lot of people work left to right And then,
Right.
they didn't want to update something in the middle of the catalog that affects something at the beginning.
And I'm
So,
glad this is a choice, because for me, I'm not the type of person that starts there. I usually look through the image and I find one I really like and I polish it. And so I like
okay,
that it can work. I'm going to turn that off because that's
there you
what
go.
confused me there.
I like
I
that.
like I like that it pulls stuff back in. In this case, it didn't yet, but maybe it will if I'm going to
Yeah.
go
So
ahead and take this.
if
Go ahead.
what you could do is unmark it as a reference and then
And then
mark it. Yeah. And see if it then will go backwards. So there you
there we
go.
go. Yeah.
And then once you mark it again, bam.
And then all right, there we go. So see, that's what I like, because I feel like for me, I don't always start at the beginning, because maybe it wasn't a great photo at the beginning of that. They're getting warmed up. So
Okay.
but it looks like it got all these now. That looks fine to me. So now let's move on to this next section. I'm going to start in the middle again. And that one's just a little bright, but it looks pretty good. I would say right about right there, honestly. Maybe pull up the
Nice.
blacks just a touch. And then I would mark that, and we'll probably see them. Yep.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's why I was getting confused, because I was like, well, it's not going backwards anymore, and I'm used to that. So, but yeah, I could see how a lot of people would prefer it to just go forward from then on. All right, so let's see if it got it. Oh, those are identical. I must have somehow copied that one. Okay. So it did pretty good on this one. This one, completely different lighting situation. They're backlit. And honestly, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it there because her skin's so light. I don't want to lighten her up more. So I think that, that's pretty natural looking. So I'm going to say that's a reference, and it's going to go to town on the rest of these here.
Yeah.
So let's check one of these farther ones down. That looks good to me. That's a
nice.
good beginning for sure. This one might be a touch bright, but not bad. So I would probably just bring it down a little bit and say reference, and then it might recalculate these. It's just fine. Yeah, that looks good.
I love it. And it's just so good that you could just have this real-time feedback that, like, again, with the other solutions, you send it, get it edited in the style, and then it sends it back to Lightroom. And then now you're just in Lightroom the entire time, doing everything manually. And you can
each photo.
Yeah. And you can totally batch edit, batch sync, but Lightroom doesn't calculate and match it, even with there's an exposure match.
And it doesn't work correctly. I know. It
doesn't work all the Sometimes I'm like, oh, it worked. And then most of the time it's like, it didn't catch.
Yeah, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're shooting like aperture priority, each photo could be just a little bit different in lighting depending on how you caught the angle of the light. So this is nice for that, because it's going in and analyzing each photo and trying to compensate and get them all at the same brightness, which is really good. So let's go to some images that matter here. This one's pretty good, and already it's pretty good. For this one, I might warm it up a little bit. It feels a little cool. I don't want too much bluish vibe in there, but I don't want it to feel unnatural either. I don't like them to be like super bright yellow like that, but somewhere right here looks pretty good. And it seems like it's picking up on my filmy vibe pretty good here. It's keeping that from that one photo that I did, because this has more of a crushed look. So that's good. So I like that right there. I wouldn't change that for the moment. So I'm going to see what it does with the others. This one, even though it's a different angle, hopefully it got it pretty close. It maybe struggled a little with the white balance on that one, so I'll just cool it off a little bit. And I might bump the blacks just because he's a lot darker back there. And then I might bring the highlight or the exposure down just a touch. I want it to feel kind of shadowy, because that's how it actually was. They're in an enclosed outer awning type of thing. So I'll leave that like that. I'll pick one of these. That already looks pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
That's natural looking to me. Like I want some of that shadow, because that's exactly how it felt when we were there. So it's picking up on these really good. The white balance. This was a tricky photo too, because they're kind of in the middle between this natural light coming in and then the shade over here, and so it seemed to find the sweet spot on that pretty good. I would say their skin tones look pretty good, so that's really the main concern I would have on that. I'm going to go ahead and keep that reference. So
as you're doing this isn't the final process. You would send these to the client to proof and like select?
Correct.
Nice.
Yep. They would go through and pick what they want. And that's, am I able to inject a little suggestion I'd like to see in here? That's one of the things that kind of threw me here, because my process, when I send them off to the clients, then they go through in my gallery and they select all their favorites. And so I'm able to export that list with the numbers of each photo, so that when I want to do the final edits, I can put them, say if I'm doing it in Lightroom, I put it in Lightroom and then I do a search for just those photos, and then they all pull up and I make a whole separate folder of those. And I say, okay, these are just my final edits. And I do a whole new, I duplicate those photos because I don't want to mess with the other proofs. I want to leave them as a backup.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that, I would like to be able to do something like that in here, where I could say, well, these are the photos I need to work with out of all of these, because these are the ones the client chose, and maybe either put them in another folder, or if there's a way to mark them a certain way, like final edits, something to that degree.
What about even sending out like a light version of the proofs? Like, you imagine, being able to send out like a preview gallery where it's not like full resolution, but enough where your clients can click through and select. And then like those selections could be like then brought back into this project, and then you could just filter by that.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I do with Lightroom. That's kind of the process there. But I still have to publish them to my gallery. I use Pixieset. I know there's a ton of galleries like PicTime and stuff. Pixieset just seems like it's the most straightforward for my customers.
Yeah.
And some of the other ones are too robust. Yeah. Some of the others are great, but they're just so robust that they're confusing. So, my clients, they don't always just pick favorites. If they're going to get digital copies, I have them pick favorites. If they're going to order prints, they order them right then, even though the word proof is across their photo. So I'm still going to go back and re-edit those photos. So I need to be able to bring in that CSV, I think, file, and be able to, copy those photo names into the program and narrow it down. So that's one thing with this right now, is I have to go in and manually pick them out.
Okay.
When I'm ready for my final edits. I would like to see a way around that. But I also know you're still in beta, and of course that's probably something that's in the works. So
yeah,
it's already leaps and bounds over a lot of stuff I've tried. So
appreciate that.
So yeah. Okay, that one looks good. I'm just gonna go with that. I mean, this one could use maybe just a hint of brightness. Not much. It's pretty good.
So as you're working through these, in your opinion, what are some of the pain points right now for photographers, in your opinion, as far as like editing and workflow goes? Because it's changed a lot from when you first got into photography to now.
Oh yeah, a lot. One of the things that was always a pain spot, and it isn't for me so much, but it might still be for other photographers, is touch-ups. Unless you're going to go into Photoshop and just totally make a destructible image that you're going to do your touch-ups on. I like to do as much touch-up as I can in a non-destructive way, so I can always go back and change it if I want. And so in Lightroom, I would rely on that history panel,
Yeah.
So to me, being able to edit and get a good clean touch up without it looking like plastic skin is something that's very hard to get in Lightroom unless you have done it for a long time and you kind of learned that less is more. So that's, to me, I've overcome it, but I've had to do a lot of things to kind of get to where I'm comfortable with it. And I imagine a lot of newer photographers do struggle with that yet.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you were asking me?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the possibility of having a program that not only allows you to color correct like this, but do a lot of retouching within the same program is, I think, something that a lot of people now desire, whereas before we were content with like, wow, we have Photoshop, we have the ability to do this. And so it was expected that, you'd edit your photos and then you would just bring it into Photoshop. But as I think, wedding photography evolved, and now you go from delivering 30 to 40 to hundreds. Now you're delivering I'm delivering like up to 1,200 images now for like bigger weddings and stuff. And the the ideal of bringing in, tens and hundreds of photos to retouch in Photoshop is daunting.
Oh, I know.
And so capabilities of AI to be able to have a program that can possibly retouch in bulk. We're already seeing that now, and
that's what Evoto does. Evoto is
Yeah.
like doing the Photoshop work for you.
It's pretty crazy.
It's working with a rasterized image, and it's doing stuff that would be very time consuming. And so I feel like that's going to be the standard here pretty soon. They were just one of the first people to get on board with that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we have spot healing, which is very useful, but it's great because there are times where like it will transfer the spot healing as well to similar images.
Yeah, I noticed that. It will if it notices a similarity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of working with it right now. I just like to sometimes make that background a little more colorful, and so I'm kind of
I could see
punching it up in the background a little bit more. And so I'm hoping that AI will carry that over. It has in the past, so I'm going to go ahead and use that as a reference, and we're going to see if it builds masks on some of these now, and I'm pretty sure it will.
Yeah.
So it's still building this one here.
Perhaps not on that one. I would think on the ones that where they're doing the piggyback.
Oh yeah, because it needs to be the same setting. It didn't do it that time, but a lot of times it has created a mask.
Next one, the 075. There it is.
There it is. Yeah, so it's got one there. I wonder why it didn't choose it on this one.
I guess maybe
but yeah, most of the time it gets it and it makes that little change that I did. So that's cool. I just wanted to do that to kind of show that feature.
Yeah, and we added a little quality of life feature too. So like on your masks, when you have the mask menu selected, you can actually rename it. So if you want to organize your masks, you just click on the menu and then go right there, hover up one more. Or you can rename that. And then even the mask group if you want.
Oh, cool.
So like right above it. There you go.
So this right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Just put something like that
there you go.
So that should have carried over if I would have. If it would have taken those over. Like, let's do this. Let's make that not a reference real quick and then
unlock it.
Yeah. Well,
that one was the one you renamed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, it'll get it. Maybe that situation it didn't get it, but in the past for me, it has.
Yeah, it does.
I thought that was really cool because I have noticed, like other programs like, Imagine and Aftershoot, they don't seem to carry over those masks. I haven't had any luck with it anyway. Maybe they've addressed that, but I didn't have any luck with it. So
I believe they do mask, but it's hard because you're working in their program and you don't have like an editing screen like this. You're only just seeing sliders and numbers and values. And
that's what I was saying. They do have the masks, but in Lightroom, if you create a mask of your own, it's not going to know to apply that to all the other images.
Yeah.
Because it makes its own mask. It's doing its own thing on Imagine's end. And it makes masks that aren't even quite as good as the ones in Lightroom, I've noticed. But it probably does that for speed purposes.
Yeah.
Or the fact that it's uploading smaller images to the server to work with to begin with. So
yeah,
that's kind of how they do theirs.
All right.
So I'm getting through here. If I wasn't talking, I'd be done already, but I'm going to speed this up a little bit here because it's looking like it's really nailing them for the most part, just very small tweaks. So I'm just going to kind of pump through this. I can see just by looking down if something's, this one's almost perfect. If I did do anything, it would just be the slightest change right there. And then that will hopefully go back to some of these others. That one looks great. And they're so consistent. I mean, they look like they were already painstakingly edited in a lot of ways. So
yeah, it's very interesting too because I've honestly not used Lightroom since November. I haven't exported out of there. I've only been using Polarr Next, and when you say that, I can't remember what it was like in Lightroom batch editing, and I'm curious to go back and see how consistent my colors and exposure were with just the old school batch editing and syncing. And I'm thinking, wow, have my like, what do you call that? Like like threshold, like risen as far as like what I expect from a photo editing program now?
I bet
like,
it has.
You know, I think it has. And like, I can almost now in Polarr Next get real picky in a way. And it's like, I bet you I wasn't this picky in Lightroom. I bet you I was like a bit more lenient. Cause like now with Polarr Next, like I feel like I expect perfection a lot of the time.
Right.
I can get real discontent sometimes. And I'm just like,
spoiled.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm spoiled with it. And like, it's so weird. It's like a jarring thought to think that like, wow, I wonder if like I was as consistent as I am now with Polarr Next. And I was talking with a friend the other day because we were talking about Capture One, which is a great program for sure. But like looking back over my photos, probably there was a period where like I went to Capture One for a year, and I don't like the edits I did from that. And like I feel like my style kind of dropped off just because like one, I couldn't really easily convert all my presets to Capture One. Right. And then I ended up buying a couple Maston Labs presets, which are expensive. Very. And I had to learn a whole different editing thing. And maybe I got a little too complex because you can do layers and add presets. Like it's cool, but like I was doing too much and I wasn't able to batch edit as well in there as I do with Lightroom. And so when I look back on the images, not to say like a regret, because I definitely put my effort into it and my clients are satisfied, but to where my work is now and with Polarr Next, it's so consistent. It's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, this looks just like how I would do it in Lightroom for this stage, but I'm sitting here having a conversation while I'm doing it. I'm not even paying attention for a lot of it. It's very effortless and not stressful. And I hate repetition. So anything that's taken some of that out of my work is great.
Yeah. And
let's put it to the test on this one here. I'm gonna put a linear gradient. This is one of the things I would like to see changed here is when you put a linear gradient in, I have to spin it and get it where I want it. I would like to see it already, like I could drag it the way I want, you know?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
That was some feedback we got because that was like Lightroom behavior where you do it and you just drag it, then it creates.
Right. It kind of waits to see where you're needing it. So so like that balances it out a little bit more. Now let's see if it takes that and puts that mask in with these others.
I think it did.
It did. There it is. So
yeah,
it did it cool. Probably on all of them. Yeah, it did. It managed to get them all. So that's good. And this one here had some really funky lighting, but it has done a very good job balancing that out. Because
let me see the before on this. If you hold that AB button at the top, or you can hit that too. There you go. So you can see side by side.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, it was a weird spot in an alley that just didn't have the most flattering of lights. And I probably would warm this up a little bit because it kind of has a little bit of a blue vibe going on there, and I would darken it a little bit.
Yeah. Great Bend, Kansas, not Texas. Great Bend, Kansas.
Yes.
Nice.
Lots of alleys here.
Yeah, that's something we don't have. I mean, there are alleys, but well, I mean, you know, Lahaina, you know, the town that got affected by the fires, there's quite a few there. And then there's another town here called Paia Bay or Paia. They do have some, but they're real small. So nothing.
You're in Maui, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. You're like ready to export. Nice.
That was 150 photos and I was hardly paying attention while I did it. So,
I mean, you did it in less than an hour. 150.
Well, and I could have done it in probably 5 minutes, honestly.
That's pretty crazy.
I don't walk and chew gum very well.
That's pretty good. And then the grid view too. That's another view I like to look to, like find those ones that are a little bit, you know, too bright or too dark.
Right. You can go back through and do a quick survey.
Mm-hmm.
Something I would like to see is when I'm in this mode here, just some feedback. I'd like to be able to hide this film strip so I have more real estate if I'm not needing to see each image as I'm going.
That's good.
You get to a point where you've got it down in your muscle memory and you know what you're doing, and you don't necessarily need to see each photo.
Yeah.
And then if you hovered over it or clicked a button, have it come back. But that'd be nice. Just I'm on a little 14-inch MacBook Air right now, and so
That's
anything
really good feedback.
yeah, if you can get more screen real estate, I know the Air is a very popular laptop with photographers. So
Yeah, I don't think I've come across anyone asking to hide the film strip.
really,
Honestly, yeah, I don't think.
I do it in
Yeah,
Lightroom all the time because
that is
I just
awesome.
I want that picture as big as I can get it.
Yeah.
So
All
these
right.
all look pretty spot on for the most part. I mean, enough to deliver to my client, and then I would make further changes.
Heck yeah, that looks great.
Awesome.
Well, there you go. And then, when you're done with it, now you got your style trained. You started out with 7 images. Now you're 37 images into this this style that
Yeah,
you've trained it on, and you can just continue to perpetuate that as you go, which is pretty sweet.
I've got a second folder set
Okay.
up here. Override edits.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use from a previous project,
Looks
and we're
good.
gonna that one of the 37 photos right there. It's gonna use that to give me my starting point. We'll see what it does here.
Not bad. You can see it's a little bright, but
A little bright, but all I have to do is bump down one or two of them, and it'll fix that. So
mm-hmm.
it's already going to rethink those.
And so what's interesting too, so when you create a new style based off of a previous style, or you say you use a Polarr pre-trained style, there are no references, right? You're starting from scratch basically. And not scratch because you're using the style previous, but you're not going to have any references. And so when there are 0 references, the AI will actually be a bit more generous when you mark a reference. So for instance, let's wait for this to finish processing these last 30.
Okay.
And when you mark a reference, it should process. I would venture to guess you uploaded 68 here. I would venture to say it's probably going to update at least 30. We'll see.
Okay.
I'm interested because before when you start off with references and you train them,
right,
then you go in and you start marking references, it'll make it a little bit more local. So if you have a 60 image set, then it'll maybe reduce it to updating 6 or 7 or 10.
Okay.
But because you have no references, it's a little reference hungry.
Bigger chunks. See. Okay. Well, then what I'm going to do, because there's a lot of them in this one that are backlit. So I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to throw an extra curveball at it.
All right.
Oops, I didn't mean to put that one. I meant to do background, and I'll just slightly reduce the background. Not very much, but just
nice.
So it doesn't lose all of its color. And we'll even name it. We'll do this.
Pencil.
Okay.
We're so used to just double click it and then.
I'll just write background mask just so we can see if it carries over and everything.
Nice.
All right. So now I'm just going to hit that as a reference. And it's
15. Not as generous as I thought, but 15. That's not bad.
So let's see what it did for.
Not that one.
Not a mask on that one.
Maybe 21.
I bet 21 has it. Yeah, it does. There's a dot by it right there. So I know it's in there. And it got the text. Let's go back a little further. Pick this one. Not on that one. So it seems like the vertical ones, maybe if I would have done that with them, it would catch all the verticals. So let's try that real quick.
Mask.
Background. And we'll just pull it down a little bit. And I'm not going to title it or anything. I'll just do that. Let's see if it updates. And it looks like it's going to. Well, it updated, but it still didn't put the mask in there.
Yeah, not on those ones.
Some of them it did. This one it did.
There you go.
So there's probably just something little that's hanging up on it. This one here, it tried to straighten out according to these bricks, I think, and it was an angled shot, so I think it got confused a little bit. So that's something where I would just hit reset and mess with it myself. But
Nice.
color wise, that looks pretty dang good for not even messing with it yet. I haven't touched it. So
Yeah. Just, yeah, use the previous style. That's great.
yeah, I'm liking it. So I'm going to give it some feedback
Uh-oh.
there.
Uh-oh, we're getting sucked into editing some more.
Yeah, we're probably low on time. So you got me doing it now. Okay, well,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, that's how easy and effortless like Polarr Next can be. You know what I mean? Like it just going from like project to project in Lightroom and loading, like, it could take a while where you just don't want to. I don't want
It
to load up
does.
another project, but this is just so easy. You can jump in and change the style. So here's an important question. As much as you love where Polarr Next is at right now, what is the reason why currently you would still, with your workflow, are using another solution? And
I
like,
would say
where could Polarr Next improve?
I'd say the biggest reason um, is I want to see where this goes long term, because
Mm-hmm.
whenever I'm doing my work, I'm trying to think, hey, if I need to revisit this, am I going to be able to? And is it going to be easy? Am I going to lose my edits? Because
Mm-hmm.
I try to edit non-destructively as much as I can. And this, I know it does save all that stuff in there, but it's still in beta. And so
Yeah.
I'm a little reluctant to throw my whole workflow into it until it's further along. But I
Yeah.
love the direction it's going. I think you guys have the freshest approach at the AI I've seen in any of them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's hands-on. You can see the results instantly. Even imagine they've got a cool thing where you can tweak the AI, but you basically have to load in a couple of pictures and then go over to this little panel and just tweak those pictures, and it kind of affects your AI. It's a little more
Nice.
cumbersome. This
Mm-hmm.
is instantly, it's happening as you're editing. And I really like where you guys are going with this. And I think it won't be much longer, and I'll probably just be doing it like you're doing, using this. So I
Nice.
just, because it's my business, I have to make sure all
Yeah.
the kinks are ironed out, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to keep using it
Mm-hmm.
in the meantime. So
Yeah. And you can, because it's completely free to import, completely free to edit as much.
yeah, you
You
can
don't have
tweak
the
it as much
credits.
as you want.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really, really great feedback. And we appreciate that. That's like my experience reaching out to so many photographers. It's one thing to be a passionate photographer, to edit and have fun with it. But then it's another thing where if you're a photographer who's selling Lightroom courses, Lightroom presets, you've got an audience that uses Lightroom, maybe not the best decision, but
Right.
it may not be the best decision to kind of keep your head in the sand, like
That
to be
too.
able to explore, try new things, see what's out there and get in on it, while it's happening. Cause it's happening now, and it's not a matter of if, but just like when, like who's going to do it next the best when it's,
That's why I dove in, because I knew, just seeing what Chat GPT does, I was
mm-hmm.
like, there's no turning back from this. People are going to be spoiled really quickly. And if you get in at the beginning,
Yeah.
you're that much further ahead on the game,
Yeah.
because it is a competitive field. I mean, yeah, we all get along as photographers, but we also know there's a lot of photographers in each of our town, and we still want to be the best one if we can. I mean,
Yeah. Very
I'm
true.
always trying to be, but
That's good.
and I like to challenge myself. I want to always be taking on the next new thing, because it keeps it fun and interesting. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
stagnant.
Well, Stephen, I want to give you the floor one more time. Just any other feedback, suggestion, anything you like to say to someone who's curious, go for it.
Anybody that's curious, if you haven't used it yet, you saw how easy it is. And so you shouldn't be too confused, I wouldn't think. I would jump in and just load in a couple projects. You can go in and out of them. You can hop on for 5 minutes. You got something, a phone call that comes in. You don't have to keep editing. It'll save your place. You can come back and just kind of tweak with it, and it will make sense to you very quickly. And you'll know if you like it or not. And it's pretty addictive. I found that, like you just saw, I tried to edit another whole session and I had to be stopped. So it's pretty cool.
I'm glad we stopped you. That was a slippery slope. I was starting to be like, oh, I want to see what you do with this one.
Yeah.
But that's great. Well, with that being said, I hope we can have you on soon again sometime in the future. I'm looking forward to letting the team know about your suggestions that you put out there today. Really, really good ones. And we'll let you know on the update, and if we can roll those out in future updates and stuff. We'll let you know.
That sounds great.
Everyone else, thank you for joining us for this conversation, being able to interview Stephen all the way from Great Bend, Kansas. Really, really cool locations, beautiful set, and look forward to see more of your work in the future.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later.
See you later.
Thank you all for tuning in today, and a big shout out to Stephen for sharing his insights on Polarr Next. If you're curious about trying out Polarr Next for yourself, click the link in our video description below and you can import and edit your photos for free. And you'll also receive 2,000 export credits worth $100 to enhance your editing workflow. We're excited to announce a new monthly live stream segment where we'll offer photo editing tips and answer your questions live. Our next session is on August 28th, so mark your calendars and join us for an interactive experience. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the latest updates and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss out. See you on the next one.